the foot. First, the bones of the foot. Skeleton of the foot consists from the tarsal bone, the metatarsal bone, and the phalanges. The tarsal bone consists from 7 bones. The largest one is called the calcaneus or calcaneum or the heel bone. Immediately superior to it is the talus. In front of the talus we have the navicular bone. In front of the navicular bone we have the 3 cuneiforms bone. In front of the calcaneum we have the cuboid bone. We have 5 metatarsal bone. The first, second, and third metatarsal bone articulate with the cuneiform bone. The fourth and fifth metatarsal bone articulate with the cuboid bone. The big toe have 2 phalanges, while the other toes have 3 phalanges. The big toe have proximal and distal phalanges, while the other lateral 4 toe have proximal, middle, and distal phalanges. We can see that the bones of the foot are arranged in arch-like. So it will form what we call the medial longitudinal arch and lateral longitudinal arch, and also we have a transverse arch. We will study the foot from superficial to deep. First, sole of the foot. We will study the skin of the sole of the foot. Skin of the sole of the foot is thick and hairless. It is firmly bound to the underlying deep fascia, and it shows a few flexural creases, يعني هي طيات الجلد, and the sweaty glands are present in large numbers. So these are the features of the skin of the sole of the foot. What is the sensory supply to the sole of the foot? Supplied by these main branches. The medial calcaneal nerve, medial plantar nerve, and the lateral plantar nerve. We can see these nerves are branches from the posterior tibial nerve. In this colored figure, we can see that the medial side, most of the medial side of the heel is supplied by the medial calcaneal branch. Medial calcaneal branches, which is a nerve of posterior tibial. The medial 2/3 of the sole of the foot is supplied by the medial plantar nerve, and the lateral 1/3 supplied by the lateral plantar nerve. All of them are branches from the posterior tibial nerve. The medial plantar nerve also supply the medial 3.5 finger. The lateral plantar nerve also supply the lateral 1.5 finger. Next, if we remove the skin, we will find the deep fascia. There is a thickening of deep fascia that is form the plantar aponeurosis. Plantar aponeurosis will protect the underlying structure, يعني يعطينا حماية structures هي underlying nerves, vessels, and muscles. Plantar aponeurosis, this is a triangular thickening of deep fascia, protect underlying structures. The apex is attached to the medial and lateral tubercles of the calcaneum. Base of the aponeurosis will divide into 5 slits that pass into the toes. What are the muscles of the sole of the foot? We can divide the muscle of the sole of the foot into layers. The first layer, we have abductor hallucis, flexor digitorum brevis, and abductor digiti minimi. The second layer, we have this muscle that is called the quadratus plantae, lumbricals, flexor digitorum longus, and the flexor hallucis longus tendons. Next, the third layer, flexor hallucis brevis, adductor hallucis, flexor digiti minimi brevis. The deepest layer, fourth layer, contain the interossei, peroneus longus tendon, and tibialis posterior tendon. We can see in this figure the first layer, which is the most superficial. These are the muscle, which is the abductor hallucis that go to the big toe, flexor digitorum brevis to the lateral three fingers, and the abductor digiti minimi to the little toe. This is the first layer. Next, if we remove the first layer, we will find the second layer. The second layer consists from this muscle, the quadratus plantae, that arises from the tubercles of the heel bone or the calcaneum, and it is inserted into the tendon of this muscle, the flexor digitorum longus. So the first muscle is the quadratus plantae, the tendon of flexor digitorum longus. From the tendon of flexor digitorum longus, we have the origin of this muscle, the lumbricals, and lastly we have the flexor hallucis longus tendon. So in the second layer we have the quadratus plantae, flexor digitorum longus, the lumbricals, and the flexor hallucis longus. We can see that the blood vessels and nerves to the sole of the foot is passing in between the first and second layer. In this figure we can see the long tendons of flexor digitorum longus and flexor hallucis brevis passing to the toes, to the distal phalanx of the toes. The long flexor tendons of flexor digitorum longus will pass or perforate the tendon of flexor digitorum brevis, pass in between them to reach to the distal phalanx, and it is inserted into the base of the distal phalanx, while that of the flexor digitorum brevis will be inserted into the middle phalanx. Also, just like that of the fingers of the hand, these long flexor tendon will pass into a fibrous flexor sheath. The fibrous flexor sheath will extend from the heads of the metatarsal to the base of the distal phalanx. It will form a sheath that is attached to the sides of the phalanges, and it have an open proximal end and it have a closed distal end, and it will form a tunnel that cover the long flexor tendon until it reach its distal insertion at the base of the distal phalanx. The lumbrical muscle, we have four lumbrical muscles. These are originate from the tendons of flexor digitorum longus tendon. Next, the third layer, if we remove the second layer, we will find the third layer. Third layer consists from the muscles that pass to the big and little toe. We have the flexor hallucis brevis to the big toe, the adductor hallucis that have two head, oblique head and transverse head, and the flexor digiti minimi brevis that pass to the little toe. Next, if we remove the third, we will find the deepest layer, which is the fourth layer. It consists from the interosseous muscle, the peroneus longus tendon, and the tibialis posterior tendon. We can see that the peroneus longus tendon is grooving the inferior surface of the cuboid bone to reach the base of the first metatarsal bone and the medial cuneiform bone. The tibialis posterior tendon reach to the navicular bone and also to the cuneiform bone. These are the interosseous muscle. We have the dorsal and palmar interosseous muscle. What is the blood and nerve supply to the foot is through the posterior tibial artery and the tibial nerve. Both of them will pass deep to the flexor retinaculum, and as it passes deep to the flexor retinaculum, it will divide into two terminal branches, the medial and lateral plantar nerve and arteries. First, the medial plantar artery. It is one of the smaller terminal branch of the tibial artery. As it passes deep to the flexor retinaculum. It passes on the medial side of the sole of the foot, deep to this muscle, which is the abductor hallucis muscle. It gives cutaneous branches, muscular branches, and it accompanies the medial plantar nerve. The lateral plantar artery, one of the terminal branches of the tibial artery, this is the larger terminal branch, passes deep to the abductor hallucis and the flexor digitorum brevis muscle. It is accompanied with the lateral plantar nerve. As it reaches to the base of the fifth metatarsal bone, it will curve medially. To form the plantar arch. Also, it gives cutaneous, muscular, and articular branches. These are the medial and lateral plantar nerves and arteries, and how they are supplying the structures in the foot. This figure shows the nerve supply of the sole of the foot, and we can see how the medial plantar nerve supplying the medial 2/3 of the sole of the foot, medial 3.5 finger, the lateral plantar nerve supplying lateral 1/3 of the foot with the lateral 1.5 fingers or toes, while the medial calcaneal branch of tibial nerve supplying the medial side of the heel of the foot. Medial plantar nerve, it gives muscular branches to the abductor hallucis, flexor digitorum brevis, flexor hallucis brevis, and the first lumbrical muscle. It gives cutaneous branches, as we said, to the medial 3.5 toes, and extend onto the dorsum and supply the nail bed and the tips of the toes. Lateral plantar nerve, one of the terminal branches of the tibial nerve, give branches from the main trunk to the quadratus plantae muscle, to the abductor digiti minimi, and it will give cutaneous branches to the skin of the lateral part of the sole. From the superficial terminal branch to the flexor digiti minimi, and to the interosseous muscles of the fourth intermetatarsal space, and the plantar digital branches pass to the side of the lateral 1.5 toes. The deep terminal branch, يعني lateral plantar nerve have the branches from the main trunk, have a branch that is called superficial terminal branch, and have a deep terminal branch of lateral plantar nerve that run with the plantar arch. هذا هو deep terminal branch that run with the plantar arch to give branches to the adductor hallucis, to the second, third, and fourth lumbrical, and to all the interossei, except those in the fourth intermetatarsal space اللي قلنا عندنا supplied by the superficial terminal branch of lateral plantar nerve. So the lateral plantar nerve, it have a deep terminal branch that runs with the plantar arch to give branches to the adductor hallucis, to the second, third, and fourth lumbricals, and to all the interossei, as we can see here, all the interossei, except those in the fourth intermetatarsal space. That is, as we said, supplied by branches from the superficial terminal branch. Thank you.